So I believe it was back, it was House of the Dragon. I was reviewing House of the Dragon. I got screeners for the first, I want to say 5 or 6 episodes. And I watched them all, and I watched them all at once and wrote my review. And then I rewatched them and wrote my episodic reviews. And what I found was that watching them all at once, I liked them less than I liked them when I rewatched them week over week. Like the show itself worked better not binging it. Or maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe it was just the adjustment from Game of Thrones to House of the Dragon and changing my expectations, and that took time. There was sort of an adjustment period, sort of like if anyone in here plays Dark Souls, going from Dark Souls to Bloodborne took time to adjust. I had to relearn how to play the game because it was such different mechanics. I was kind of reworking my brain with House of the Dragon. Well, I thought at the time, all right, for these episodic shows, instead of watching, like if I get screeners, instead of watching all the screeners at once and then writing a full review of the show, or usually you only get a couple or you get a few, you don't get the whole season typically, but I'm going to watch them week by week because, there are some shows, thinking back to series like the first season of Westworld, for instance, there are some shows where you don't want to know in advance. You want to enjoy it week to week with everybody else. I didn't get screeners for Westworld ahead of time. I just got like weekly screener, right? I don't even know if I got Westworld screeners for the first season. But it was fun to write about Westworld because there was a bunch of fan theories, and being part of that, rather than knowing ahead of time, was part of the excitement, coming up with my own theories. And, and that's kind of what I like about mystery shows like True Detective. You don't know what's happening, but it's fun. It's fun to wonder, right? That's the whole fun of a mystery show, is to wonder what's happening, what's coming, what's going on. So I thought with True Detective Night Country, even though I got screeners for the entire season, I thought, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to watch one episode at a time, along with everybody else. I'm excited about this True Detective. True Detective Season 1 is one of my favorite shows of all time. Maybe, Jodie Foster's great. I can't wait to see her back in an acting role. I don't think she's ever done a big TV show like this before. After watching 2 episodes, the first 3 episodes, I just decided to finish my screeners. Because, for one thing, I haven't enjoyed it. I have not felt this sense of, I wonder what the mystery is. I'd really like to find out. Mostly I had this question in my mind, does it get better? Does it get better? Is this going to pay off? So I'm not going to spoil anything because that would not only be breaking the embargo I have for screeners, but it would also be ruining, people's enjoyment of the show. This is not a recap video, so no spoilers, but I can safely say that it does not get better. Unfortunately, having finished the season, start to finish, all 6 episodes, 2 fewer than the previous seasons, I can safely say that this show is very, very disappointing. This phrase popped into my brain watching the finale. True Detective Night Country is to True Detective what Rings of Power is to Lord of the Rings. And by that I mean it takes the world, the story, the intellectual property of True Detective, and then it pretends to be a part of that. Similarly to how Rings of Power pretended to be part of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. It wears some of the same clothes, but they're just costumes. It uses some of the same phrases. We've seen some of this. We've seen some references to Season 1 in like Travis Cole, Russ Father, the Spiral image, etc., etc. There's more, but not a lot more, but enough to make me want to punch a hole through the wall. No, not really, but metaphorically, yes. There is a moment in the finale that's a callback to Season 1 that makes me want to punch a hole in a metaphorical wall. There are very few times where I sort of shout in dismay while watching a TV show. And that's happened in Rings of Power. Rings of Power took Tolkien's work and then just made a mockery of it. It's like the creators of that show thought Lord of the Rings was cool, but really understood nothing about like the thematic elements or the deep lore and narrative structure or any of that stuff, and just made something that they thought was cool, using a lot of this sort of modern day, like, we need to have a badass female warrior character, and so they made Galadriel. And what is the strong female character in today's movies and TV shows? Someone who's deeply unlikable for whatever reason, and it's some sort of weird baked-in misogyny in and of itself. The idea in modern day filmmaking is that a strong female character must be really unlikable, and so Galadriel became Karen. And so we have in Night Country a very female-driven story, right, with these two detectives who are, and I will tell you this, as much as you dislike them now, by the end of the 6th episode of this show, you will dislike them more. I mean, I got to a point where I literally, these are two of the most horrible characters I have ever seen in any show in my life. And I'll take Galadriel over either one of these women. They are despicable. And not in a way that's like, oh, cool, like, these are, not like in a way, like Walter White's a despicable character, right? But he's sort of supposed to be. By the end of that show, you're supposed to feel like, Walter White, he broke bad, he's an asshole, like, even his redemption moment doesn't save him from that. In this show, you're supposed to think that these characters are justified. And they're not. The way that the things they do, the decisions they make are not justified. And the show wants you to think that they are. And it's written so absolutely bonkers bad. It's just horribly written. These characters are so badly written by the end of this show. It beggars belief. I was honestly, there were moments in the finale in particular that I just could not believe. Not because they were so crazy, like in other shows where you're like, holy shit, what a twist. Or no, there's no surprising twists in this show at all. Everything, the most predictable, and obviously there's different theories, but I will say the most predictable shit happens. It is a deeply, deeply predictable show that's trying very hard and tries extremely hard by the end to be about girl power, but ends up being extraordinarily condescending to women. I find that the harder you try to make something about like girl power and tough, strong women, the more condescending and fake it starts to be. You start to write women like this. It's like the noble savage cliche or noble savage trope, where Native Americans, and this is done also. It's a combination, but you have the noble savage who's like perfect in every way, in tune with nature, better than the white man, and flawless. And you pretty much you create this racist trope about it because you're not creating real people. You're creating, angels. Right? All Native Americans are good and pure and wonderful. No, they were just humans like everybody else. And women. Why I liked season 1 of Yellow Jackets was that it had strong female characters, and that they were strong not because they were tough. They were strong in that they were developed well. They were interesting. They were complex. They weren't all just, badass, right? I mean, some of them were badass. But they were badass with flaws. Flaws make people real. And yeah, these characters in Night Country have flaws. But by the end, you get, it's too much. And it's condescending. And it creates the noble savage in I don't know what to call it, like the noble woman trope. And that may play to a certain audience. But I think most audiences, most viewers, most consumers of media would like to see complex characters more, and that's why, a show like Mare of Easttown is great. That's why a show like The Killing is so compelling, because the characters, it's not pushing something on us. It's just telling a good story. I just watched Deadlock. I need to make a video about Deadlock. This is a story about a town in Tasmania, Australia, that has been overrun by lesbians. One of the main character, one of the two main detectives, is a lesbian. It's two female detectives investigating the death of men, and what quickly becomes obvious as a serial killer mystery. And it deals with issues of modern day LGBTQ themes, things like that. But it does so in such a enormously clever and effective way. And it is not trying to preach so much as it is like, well, I mean, I guess there's a little preachiness. I will say there's a part towards the end where it gets a little preachy, but then it turns that around in a really clever and interesting way. And the great thing about this show, whether or not you love it or not, like I loved it. It's a great mystery. It keeps you guessing. You don't know who the killer is, but you keep on following different threads and getting misled, and you're on the edge of your seat. And the characters are great, and it's very, very funny. It's very, very funny, and it does all this while being a female forward show, but without like making me feel like it's trying too hard. Like it's doing what it wants to do, and it's doing it well. Great. Whereas True Detective Night Country is not. It's not funny. Its characters are not interesting, and frankly, it has such an identity crisis because none of it pays off. Whatever your hope for this show is, whether whatever direction you're theorizing about what's going on, whatever you're thinking, it does not pay off. I honestly don't know how it got a single good review from anyone who watched the whole season, because it just doesn't. It feels like a mystery without a mystery also. Like the police are investigating what exactly? It seems like they're mostly investigating this native girl, Annie, who was killed, more than they're investigating these men who were found frozen to death on the ice. It pushes a lot of supernatural stuff, but also like, is it or isn't it, supernatural? None of it pays off. And at no point do I feel watching this show like I'm really intrigued about who did it. Who's the killer? Who did it? And when I found out in the end, the truth, it felt the first part of the revelation, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but it felt like a really big ripoff of a movie, which I won't name, but I bet you can guess, because a lot of people guessed it in the first episode, including me. And the second part of what happened, the second part of the whodunit, is so preachy and fucking mind-blowingly awful and stupid and cheesy and cringy and corny that I honestly, by the end of it, and I'm going to say it, it's the worst mystery show I've ever seen. It makes season 2 look like a goddamn masterpiece. I cannot think of a worse mystery. I mean, I love mysteries. I watch a lot of mysteries. There's a lot I haven't seen. I just finished The Night Of on HBO, which I somehow didn't get around to watching when it came out. That was great. Like I said, I watched Deadlock recently. Another really funny mystery that's come out recently is Only Murders in the Building. I was raised basically on BBC mysteries like Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple and Sherlock Holmes. I love mysteries. And yeah, there's some bad mysteries out there, but I can't think of a single one I've seen that's this bad. Like, okay, Broadchurch, that's a great mystery, the first season, and I think it gets a lot worse in season 2, to the point where I didn't even finish it. I didn't watch season 3. I bet season 3 looks like a masterpiece compared to the actual dog shit that is True Detective Night Country. Like, it is. You need to watch this show, you have to watch it to know how bad it is. It may be, outside of something truly horrendous like Fear the Walking Dead, it's probably the worst, most disappointing show I've seen since Rings of Power. I thought Yellow Jackets season 2 was pretty bad also, and really disappointing because of how great the first season was. But this is worse by a lot. Like, I was on the fence after episode 3. I was like, okay, it could still get better. Maybe we get to a point where it's no. It is poorly written. The shit that actually happens makes no sense. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the next few episodes that makes no sense. It's poorly edited. There are weird transitions between episodes and time jumps where you're just like, wait, what? I've talked about it a little bit about my dislike of some of the tropes, like the angry wife who's mad at her husband for being a cop, doing cop work stuff. There's so much of that. It is so derivative. I'm not going to keep going because I can't talk about a lot of the things I want to talk about because I told you this wouldn't be a spoiler review, so no spoilers. I managed to go 15 minutes and not really spoil anything about this show. I think you should keep watching it though, so that we can talk about it and how bad it is. I'm serious. True Detective Night Country is to True Detective what Rings of Power is to Lord of the Rings. That show had a few callbacks, a few references, like the Gandalf character saying things like I don't remember, I can't even think of the line right now. There are some lines that are like plucked out of Lord of the Rings and plopped into the Rings of Power just to be like, hey, look, guys, we're Lord of the Rings too. And it's just like that in Night Country. These callbacks, the Easter eggs, the lack of payoff, the lack of genuine and I don't know if this is, I have not decided if this is a problem with the showrunner and writers, or if this is a problem with HBO and Warner Brothers meddling. Like, did they have a different story? I mean, we know they had a different story. It wasn't supposed to be True Detective at first. So how much was changed from that story, which maybe was a really good story and mystery on its own? How much was changed and made into True Detective, just sort of like wedged and shoehorned in there? That's what I want to know. Because what we get is this Frankenstein's monster of like bad storytelling that's extraordinarily predictable. That doesn't just rip off True Detective. It honestly doesn't rip off True Detective much at all, other than those call-outs, those little Easter eggs. It rips off other stuff way more. And it's just extremely predictable. What's your prediction? You're probably right. Think of the most obvious predictions you have about this show so far. And think about the cringiest, preachiest way that they could wrap things up. And that's what happens, okay? You've got it. You've already figured it out. Spoiler alert, you've already figured it out. It's so fucking predictable. So, that's my little rant today. I hope you had a good time listening to me go off and on. But really, seriously, do yourself a favor and make a drinking game out of it. Every time somebody says you're asking the wrong question or ask a question or something like that, take a shot for me. I can't have any anymore because I'm an alcoholic. But you can. You can drink, and I can drink vicariously through you. Anyways, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I only ask you this at the end of my videos. I'm supposed to ask you many times throughout, so do me a favor and just do it now, right? Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day.